Hey, this is the first Misery Loves Company of the new year, and we have a small, intimate group of people who I guess didn't have anything else to do on New Year's Day.
That's me.
um, but anyway, yeah, this is if you're watching this on YouTube for the first time, it's a weekly reading series with outsider and transgressive authors who come and read their work. As I said, we've got a pretty small group today, so I do know we've got a couple of people who want to read, though. So we'll start the new fucking year off with Ryan.
Hey, what's up? Okay, let's do this.
Hey, yeah.
Um,
If you want to maybe just move your mic a little bit.
yeah, I
Uh,
realized just as I said that I'd let the mic drop. Sorry.
awesome.
Okay, I think I'm good to go now. We
Yeah,
can
you
always
sound good.
start. Okay, cool. So the story is called Goetia, and this is part one, Coda. I
Actually,
could write.
Ryan, I hate to interrupt you, but maybe just a little closer with the mic. It might
Oh,
just
a
be
little
my speaker.
closer? Oh,
That's
okay,
perfect. That's perfect. Sorry about
for
that.
sure. Okay. This is just from the story is called Gosha, and the part one is called Coda. I could write a book about what you don't know, EJ tells Gabrielle as she sprays her sigil. It's blood red, though that's not the color of her blood. EJ's physical veins pump blood the pitch black of roofing tar. But red catches the eye. Sigils are more powerful the longer the held gaze. Doesn't it feel weird, always thinking about death, Gabriel says. He's not worried about distracting her. She's done this so many times she could do it in her sleep and not mess up. You're always thinking about it, right? It's like a swamp, she says, crossing a pentagram. Stuff floats to the surface. I can see it, though it's always the swamp bubbling it up. Yeah, he says, as she leaves the last spiral. It's acceptance anyway, she says. I'm always ready to die. Why else would I choose it? Let's move on before the Goths catch us. The Goths, the ghost Goths, stealth cloaked tag enforcement. If they cared about us, we'd already be ethereal. It started sarcastic, but now he thinks it's what he really believes. He doesn't know why the Goths would watch them sigil and not care, but they work in mysterious ways. EJ thinking she's so far past their sight seems more and more like ego. He doesn't think anyone is now. Despite everything, it's still the illusion she feels safe in. She needs to feel safe while she expresses herself. Ethereality is too much for anyone to really accept, no matter what she says. He's her lookout, but what would punish them is something he'd never see coming. It's late dusk, near dawn. This canvas is a concave tunnel interior between two manifest nodes. It's empty in these hours, but will start to flow regular in 2 a.m.s. Propagation says the Ginger Wolves will win. The Shadow Net predicts a staggering loss. Psych profiles amalgamated from vote records show it's likely depression born of expectation will take days to drain. Then they'll all venture into the physical again and make cross-node journeys. We'll see the sigil, stare at it, post at it, and its power will grow. But now Gabriel is sure the gods have been watching them all along. It scares him, the idea that they're watching them and doing nothing. It's not safe. It means something that's not safety. As they flit through the tunnels like ferrets, Gabriel shivers. Tagger's underdressed, and his shirt's fabric is silk thin. No tunnels stream with emotional currents, breaking against you in cold winds. But it's not the cold that makes him shiver, and it's not the gops either. Not really. Far deep in his sight. It's something else. Something beyond him. Um, and that was part one. I can keep going if people want. There's
Oh
like
yeah,
a
read
couple other
another
parts.
part.
Okay, cool. Part two is called Nodes. Is
Could you
EJ
drop a link to the second part in the chat?
Sure. If you click the first link, you can just follow the story along.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. Sorry about that.
It's all good. Okay. Thank you. It's cool. It's really cool reading this, by the way. I wrote this a while ago and completely forgot what it's about. Anyway, part two is called Nodes. This EJ thing is weird. Usually a relationship starts in nodes. It's easier to connect with someone when your soul frequencies mesh together like whale song harmonies. Propagation tells him that, but that doesn't matter because it started in the ShadowNet first. Propagation claiming their ancient ways of thinking. Just because propagation's taken it doesn't mean it isn't true. He believed it. But he first saw her right outside one of Soka's second tier nodes. She'd left it a nanosecond before him. He saw her back, the toss of her dreadlocks over her cream colored neck. The crook of her back was the arch of an athlete's body. and he never felt anything like it. Not about a physical form he didn't know through node compiled frequencies. He followed her as she walked steady through the tunnels, lithe like a jungle cat. She ebbed and flowed with the other physicals, like she spent every second breathing air, with lungs wrapped tight by chest plate. He knew he just wanted to be where she was, and where she was tagging, and what he became was her lookout, though it didn't matter because of how good Goth cloaking was. It didn't make sense, and they still hung together while she tagged. That's their connection. And when they deform back into the nodes, they have nothing to say to each other. They don't mesh. It's awkward. They drift to other souls, coming in and out through the nodes. Those are the harmonics he feels best within the nodes, the homeless. Until he met EJ, he only left nodes to find other nodes. They drift away from each other, and she talks about her tagging, and he talks about his safety, but now she never leaves without letting him know. The word sigil drifts into his consciousness with her musk, and he knows it's time to form again. And he thinks about how she is in the physical, and he wants to have a tongue again, so he can press it into his mouth when he sees her. Every time he goes with her, he breaks his safety. If he gets zapped by the Goths, he's turned ethereal, unable to either touch the physical or get back into a node. That's what would happen to her too, and he can't stand the idea it would happen without him. He must be in love to risk it over and over again. Must be in love because he'd do it forever. That was part 2. Part 3 is called Soka. After the last sigil, he doesn't hear from EJ. Something in him starts to starve. In the subjection of the node, time goes slower based on what you're waiting for. This feels like millennia. There are moments he checks outside physical time. It's been a week now, the silence still stretching. One day he ventures into the sigil vibrations. They're friendly but focused. No one's seen her sigil around. One day into the second week, he leaves the node to look for her. But he doesn't know where to start. He's always been where EJ is, but he only knows her by hellos and goodbyes. She's broken the circle. She's always had a right to, could always have done it whenever, but he feels hurt. Hurt and scared that she'd go without him, and what might happen to her if she did. The physical bodies of other crosses leave him cold, though he knows they're harmonics, like frozen stars, trapped entropy. When he smells EJ's musk, he thinks he's hallucinating it. Musk shouldn't smell this vivid, not in the physical. It's like pine bark, overgrown with choking moss. He follows it, like the vintage video clips where the drawn follow the wafting scent of pastries, lift off their feet by need, often to their doom. Soon it digs so deep that he can't shut it out. Then it's like a coiling lure, pulling him in. It settles in his gut, barbs and lodges. It has him so full that he doesn't see her at first. She's slumped against the concave wall, lying on her side, knees buckled. Fatal. Something's wrong with her breathing. It's drawn out, her lungs straining, not getting enough. Her eyes are closed. After all this time, he must have the right to touch her. And something might be wrong. He crouches, palms her shoulder, feels her silken soft shirt and the cool skin underneath. Her eyes flutter open. Dude, he says. His voice is so intangible that for a second he wonders if he was ghosted and didn't know it. No, he just felt her shirt, so that's impossible. What's wrong with you? Her eyes flutter again, and when they catch his, she sees something he hopes he'll never see again. Her lips part, curl, uncurl. Nothing's wrong. I was sleeping. Dim remembered ShatterNet history lessons float through his mind. Back before they recharged their essences and thoughts through nodes, they turned themselves off, felt nothing, found themselves again with no difference but more dead cells. He's never heard of anyone leaving nodes long enough to try it. It takes him long moments to understand that she's been out there, full of nothing, while other people walk past. Out here with the ghost ops, free to know her, blow her away if they wanted to. Why, he says, more a sound than a word. Gabriel, he says. She rolls onto her back, away from the tunnel wall. Straightens her legs, unfurls her arms like angel wings. What's my name? EJ, he says. 2 sounds now, weighing on the thin skin of his voice like corpses. No, she says. My name is Emily Janessa Cranes Felicia. Emily Janessa is the name my parents gave me. A moan slips from her lips as she brushes away translucent spit. 4 names, he says. 2, he says. 2 halves, first and last. I don't tell you much about me, Gabriel, because you never ask. I only see you in the physical, he says. Your body, he falters. Her back, he falters. I like history, she says. She's slouching against the concave now, the arch of her back fitting into it, chin obscuring her neck. If you go far back enough, we all have ancestry names. You have to trace us before we became vibrations, when we used to eat, and sleep, and cry. He doesn't want to think about those things. He feels his eyes cast under her face, past her knees, to the ground she's sitting on, ink black to hide the physical dirt, the color of her blood. Her gaze is sharp. He can feel it bore into his brows, trying to break through his hooded lids. Where are we, she asks. Between nodes. Where, though? Soka, he says. Two sounds again hammer the physical into him. Soka is short for Southern California, she says. California means something, but the South does too. Before we built our nodes were frequencies, we cared about where we were, and what was beyond us. Beyond us is death, he hears himself say. Death and pain. Beyond us the mistress Oblivia who wants to take us into her and never let us go. You all say that, she says, if I dig deep enough. Some propagos thing they've done to you. Whenever you emerge from the nodes, you gape and blink like frightened rabbits. Outside Soka, there are other worlds, she says, but I know I can never make that matter to you. I've made it matter to me. I've drawn my sigil and burned it into me, filled my veins with death, and I know Oblivia is a tighter lover than any harmonic. He steps away from her. Her creamy skin is blanched a pale white. Something's wrong with her. You've got to get back to the nodes, he says. Something bad will happen. Your full name is Gabriel Escalin Lebov, she says. What's mine? I just told you. I forget, he says. Goodbye, Gabriel, she says. She closes her eyes. Her body sinks to the floor. Knees bunch, hands clasp over them. When he touches her again, she doesn't move. He stands still like a blinding light is shining on him. The ghost ops could be watching him. If he walks fast, he could be safe in the nodes again in less than 10 physical minutes. He looks down at her. We're not the same, and she's nothing now, and maybe will be forever.
That was excellent. I love the word hexpression, by the way.
Oh, you actually caught that? I thought that wasn't even like audible.
I caught it because
Well,
I was following along while you were reading. I had the piece open.
Oh, that's really cool. Okay, thank you. I thought that was great too.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
that's a great like what's the word, like neologism? Yeah, and I'm really, in all of the pieces you've read, I'm like in awe of your world building. It's so like inventive and rich, and I really dig it.
Thank you so much. It was really fun to read that, so thank you for letting me read it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
I like the atmosphere that piece has. It reminds me, there's a game, RPG, called Ghost Echo. It's about, I guess they call it like Ghost Punk or something like that. It has a really similar vibe to that, like people like in the nodes running from these like ethereal like cops or like kind of like law enforcement or whatever. It's really cool. But I have that same feeling from this one, and the way you talk about like the way things are fragmented, kind of like the internet, but like physical reality is kind of fragmented too. Like that is really cool. I like that.
Thank you. That means a lot to hear. Thank you a lot.
Yeah, just like the intersection of like religion and like technological cyberpunk shit is just really cool. Next up is Patrick. Oh, if he's you still
Yes,
with it? Oh,
yes.
sorry.
Hello. I'm gonna read the Power Through Scent piece first.
Gotcha. Okay.
And I'm gonna read the I Hate Walmart piece second.
And then the pieces that you've been
And
working.
then after those, I'll read the Tonka and the haiku.
Awesome. Sounds good. Floor is yours.
I was once growing up in the backwoods. The filth of the city must have rubbed off on you from birth, and the stench sticks to your skin throughout your life. The acrid stench of humanity, of sewer and sickness, death and decay, smog and semen, an utterly reprehensible smell. I imagine I smell like pine trees. At least I did when I was cutting them down. The sap caught everywhere, in my clothes, over every inch of my skin, and the sap wasn't even the worst part. It was those damn needles, always jabbing me with their tips at every angle. They managed to end up in my shirt, underwear, and socks. So much damn pine. That's what I get for playing the lumberjack. Just another hat to add to the rack of talents that involve my hands. Only my hands. The crisp bench of pine could still be lingering on me tonight, like how you can always smell an urbanite before greeting him. I have an obsession with smells and lust, or the smells of lust. It stems from an adolescent lover. I say lover loosely, on and off again for years. We danced around each other many times, but I never had her. I never did. I could have, maybe. The stars would have aligned, but they didn't. Honestly, I'm not too broken up about it. The universe wanted me to have this woman, and she would have been presented to me as such. But she wasn't, and all I got from her was a whiff and some hand stuff that didn't get either of us off. Oh, and I got this fixation on smells from her. Out of me, she got a very beautiful friendship with my cousin. It wasn't her son itself that drew out this revelation at such a young age, but a story she told me at the tail end of our non-romance. She was at the beach on vacation along the East Coast somewhere, and we hadn't talked teenage lust in the recent months before she texted me. There was a man at her hotel bar, she said, and when she walked by him, she swore it was me. He didn't look or sound like me. He was much older, so I was still budding into my teenage years. But still, she had a double take. He had my smell. She was near it, and as near to me through that similar smell as she had been in months. And this nearness in spirit caused her to reach out to me and tell me she missed me the way I smell, missed my presence really, my closeness to her. And she hung on tight to that which she forgot she missed when she texted me, bringing me ever closer to her still. I didn't understand the power of smell, of the nearness it could bring, of the power it could hold over a person until it brought me an old love back to me, an old love still unobtainable. I wouldn't say unattainable, because that implies a desire to obtain. And like I stated earlier, I'd resolved the fate of our specific relationship to the universe. And the fact that she is still best friends with my cousin now, who I had promised before fully succumbing to my lechery that I would try to stay away from her friends. And I kept that promise still, though ever more begrudgingly by the day, I might add. Okay, and then the next piece is called I Hate Walmart. It is an excerpt from my current novel in progress called Rapid Apple Decline, or Her Garden Bore No Fruit. I was leaving Walmart today only to be accosted on my way out by a geriatric old man asking to check my receipt with the bags in my cart. There used to be kind, gentle old ladies greeting me on my entrance. Now there's this decrepit shitbag standing in their place, wanting to give me a very thorough pat down. I kindly told him in a manner which communicated to him my unwillingness to cooperate, as well as my desire to leave the store without provocation, that I would let him check my receipt with my bags if he emptied out his pockets and let me root through his car beforehand. He declined, and I immediately took up a defensive position, crumbling up my receipt and hiding in my hand so as not to leave a single sliver of the paper visible to the gray geezer. It's all our policy. I'm only doing my job. Whatever excuse you need to wield in front of you to convince yourself the power process you've participated in all your life hasn't been simulated. I don't care. This is my shit. I don't want your little spotted hands rummaging through it. Honestly, I'd rather cause a big scene in the store than let some stranger poke and prod around my property. It was my property now. I had just paid for all of it. I just want to see the receipt. His voice sounded like a cry from a wounded predator. How dare you deny the authority granted to me by my long years on this earth and my yellow vest? How can you not see? Can you not see how high above you I sit? Obey or there shall be consequences. I am your elder, and because of this, I am far superior. Lick my orthopedic sneakers, boy. Call the cops, I told him. I don't not mind waiting around for them to get here because you're not going to be looking at shit. Have a nice day, he said, sounding his defeat, and I strutted off through the doors of my victory. Blow it out your ass, bud. Smiling, I loaded up my car and drove home, feeling satisfaction through my righteous indignation. And then 2 short pieces at the end. I'll read the haiku first. In the neighbor's door sits a white cat with green eyes, staring intently. And then I'll read the tanka. Heavy New Year's rain washes disease from Earth's soil. Governor Wolf says restrictions will continue. No new news. Forecasts look bleak.
That was great. I really like the very subtle psychological journey that the first piece takes you through. It's like a really where the narrator ends up at the end of the piece in terms of like that small indication that he's made this promise to her, right? And it's starting to deteriorate, and he's starting to lose track of why he even promised not to pursue her friends. And I don't know, there's something very true to the feeling of coming of age there. like the loss of that kind of romantic view of the world. But in this one, it's like it's honestly like delicate. It's a very subtle kind of loss, you know.
I
the
was
experiences.
I was reading Yasunari Kawabata's Palm of the Hand stories, and they're wonderful. I highly suggest to anyone who hasn't read them to read them. But he just sticks so much like tenderness and like thoughtfulness in these little tiny pieces, and that's what I was trying to do with this.
Yeah, I think you nailed that. I think you absolutely nailed it with the first one. And it's funny because if that story was told just a little bit differently, it'd be like a profoundly bitter story. But the way you pulled it off, it was actually a lot more gentle than that. And I appreciate that. And the second piece was just hilarious. Like, I don't know how many times it's like the power of these small moments of like social like resentment, right? Like, I don't know how many times and I don't know what it is about like checkout counters and stuff, but like, and like interactions with greeters and service industry people, where on the one hand, like, you know, rationally, these people are going through fucking hell, you know, like you need to like show them some empathy. But on the other hand, some part of you is like, I'm a fucking customer. And that's always like at war inside you. And I thought that that piece was pretty hilarious in the way it shows someone just absolutely leaning into that kind of resentment. And like you can see the way you've kind of sketched the par greater guy, that like you can see like it's like the classic unreliable narrator thing where you can see the divide between what the protagonist is telling you what happened and what it would look like to be standing there watching this scene go down, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the Walmart one. I'd actually like to see a series of these done in this style with the people of Walmart pictures. That's what came to mind. But no, I love the like lick my orthopedic sneakers, boy. That's probably one of the greatest lines I've heard about Walmart greeter. Good shit.
Yeah, that's just a little excerpt that has nothing to do with anything as the book at all. So why I like leaking it. The book's about forklifts in the union and not Walmart.
Nice.
Awesome. Did we have anyone else who wanted to read? We now have, there's nobody in the queue here. Anyone who'd like to read certainly can at this point in time. Unless I missed someone. Did anyone put anything in the chat or anything?
Nope. It looks like that's pretty much it. I think there's like 6 messages in the chat, and they're all from like me, you, B-Boy, and Ryan. So
Gotcha. So, does anyone want to read? It's a new year. Sadly, I was hoping that I'd have a little bit more written with that project I was working on, but the fucking holidays completely destroyed any will I had to write, and I've just got like fragmentary like sentences and paragraphs here and there.
read some fragmentary sentences.
I'm so like uncomfortable about the quality of my work to begin with that I'm not going to read something I haven't edited yet, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyone has anything they'd like to read? Hell, even you want to read a receipt from Walmart?
I mean,
some random Google some random shit and read us Rudy, read us.
wait, can we?
Read us a Wikipedia page.
Oh man, I can pull up John von Neumann, but it's gonna be a while. Let me tell you.
Or I read the John von Neumann Wikipedia page. Shit.
Oh, shit.
No, but Rudy, I think I interrupted you. Were you going to say something before?
I don't have anything to read, but I would like to announce a Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition game.
Oh shit.
That I'm going to run for anyone who wants to participate.
That's good. This is going up on YouTube. So if somebody sees this video after the fact and they want to participate in your D&D game, how should they contact you?
Just everybody probably has E. coli or whatever.
How many underscores are there before E. coli in your Twitter handle?
There's 2, I believe.
Okay.
I
So
don't
it's
even know
at
my
underscore EECOLI, right?
Yep, it's just like E Cummings, but not that at all.
And with 2 underscores.
But yeah, this is going to be a 5th edition game. I don't really know much about it yet, but the pitch is basically war movies mixed with glitch stuff. That's the pitch, and
Sounds like fun.
so think Apocalypse Now mixed with like, I don't know, some prominent glitch art. That I don't know.
That sounds good. So you're finally going back to 5th edition after all these years.
Yeah, well, I
Back
mean,
to Dungeons and Dragons after all these years.
I had wanted to run a D&D campaign, like I said, like that one that we were running before it was interrupted there, the one with the songs or whatever.
Oh yeah.
That was kind of supposed to be a 5th edition game, but I never really used the rules, and I'd like to try them out.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Cool. So, does anyone want to read? Do we have anyone here who might want to read tonight? If not, we can end the reading section early. But if we can kind of eke this thing out to 9 o'clock, I know a lot of people are probably not even necessarily at their computers right now. A lot of people may be in the midst of their New Year's celebrations. But
wait, isn't Bernie filibustering today? Someone should read the phone book or something in honor of that.
Is he filibustering today, or was that yesterday?
Or was it? It must have been yesterday, I guess, because I guess they're gone today.
Just
but
read the phone book. Just
There's a pain in my leg, but I can read something if you really need to stretch this out for like 15 minutes.
go ahead.
sure, read a little something. Yeah.
All right. Let me give me like 2 or 3 minutes to find something.
In the meantime, maybe I'll dig up one of my old pieces if I can find anything. I think I've read pretty much everything I've ever written that isn't complete trash, but maybe I can find something. You know what I should do? I should remember a few, what was it, last November, I put up that archive of random shit that I had started and never finished on the website.
Oh yeah, definitely,
I should, after
read some
Patrick,
excerpts of
maybe I'll
that.
read from that.
definitely.
All right, okay. Let's see if I can. Oh, there it is. Don't know if the stuff is even going to be like readable, to be honest, but actually, I'm going to step away for just a second. Patrick, whenever you're ready, you can just start reading, and I will be back.
All right, I found something. I'll read more from the book that I'm working on right now. I'll read the start of chapter 4.
Hey, awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, William will be right back. He said he's
Yeah,
get a drink.
I heard him. Okay, great. So everyone talks about cyber writing. I don't know if you can consider this cyber writing, but it might be. Okay. Welcome to Paradise. Some schmug's shitstick thought it would be a pretty ironic gag. Just such a fucking self-amusing ruse to slap that Welcome to Paradise sticker on the door to the break room that everyone used to drop their lunch and whatever other shit they brought to work with them before shift start. Hot pink Miami Vice font with the sun setting just over a palm tree. It stuck to the glass, mocking me. I had decided I tried to peel it off today if the opportunity presented itself. It's been there for 2 long weeks, and I was tired of looking at it at this point. It hasn't gotten done by now, so I might as well be the one to do it. I treated almost everything around the dock this way. Not the first person to go out of my way to do something, but I'd still go out of my way to do something before most everyone else. figuring if I made the habit out of being the go-to problem solver, or if I came across as Mr. Get Her Done, that attitude would be expected of me after a certain period of time, and if I decided at some point to deviate from being a go-getter, then that change would be promptly noticed by my superiors and I would be scolded for it. So, I fell into a healthy habit of exceeding expectations just enough I could slip by with little change in the amount of effort I put into my daily tasks, just slightly above what was expected of me. Now, was what expected of me below what I was capable of? Of course, but only a fool gives what he's capable of and not what's expected of him if the rates are fixed. Art and I were outside smoking during first break when a panicked voice came over his walkie-talkie, calling him back into the dock immediately. Tracking him with my gaze up the steps into the break room, I saw when he opened the door it had cleared out. Knowing by the panic and the voice on Art's radio something was going on in the dock, I saw my opportunity. Pulling out my box cutter, I took it apart and removed the extra razor blade from the storage compartment inside. Dying out my cigarette on the ashtray and freeing up both my hands, I started to go to work peeling the sticker off the glass. Long scraping motions didn't work at first, but they pulled enough of the sticker off the glass at the top that I was able to scrape the rest of it off pretty easily with quick little jerking movements downwards. Finally, after 2 weeks of mocking me, I was done looking at that damn sticker. Haha, fuck you, buddy. You'll never know who it was that removed your sticker, just like I'll never know the identity of who put the sticker on the window in the first place. What a strange dance this is. Ian was parked next to my forklift waiting for me when I got back into the dock. He was as clueless as I was when I asked him if he knew why the panicked voice came over Art's radio, but happy to have found me since he wanted to have a chat about a thread he read last night on Half Chan. This happened once or twice a week. Ian would find some tidbit of perceived new info, a steamy hot take, or take some book he's never heard of before online somewhere and immediately bring it to me asking what I thought about it. It was rare Ian brought me something I haven't seen before. I took Larkmore ever more seriously than he did. This was the dynamic of our relationship that I think he liked the best. If you feel like a loser because of how much time you spend online, then just find someone who has logged on more than you and you'll feel like less of a loser. Hell, I met his girlfriend a few times, doing him the favor of letting her think he was less of a loser because of it. When I met Ian's girlfriend the first time, I only wore the face of a disgruntled man with a love for the deep internet. All I brought with me was my work boots, a pair of old jeans, and a meme shirt I had custom made on one of those websites that lets you upload a picture of your significant other, then covers the shirt in their face, except it wasn't of a person, it was of Woo Lad, the meme that killed Rage Comics and marked the final end of B, the end of an era. Ian wasn't a new fag. Ian found B in 2006, the same year I did. That made us the newest of the old fags, and because of his understanding, we were friendly enough. So I would do things like embarrass myself in front of his girlfriend just so he could get a good lay that night. It's the same motto I have on the docks, pay it forward. And shit like this is exactly why Ian and I were so excited to share with me his newest hot take of the day. So, what exactly is it that you need to talk to me about? Well, Ian, start off. Can I ask you a question first? Sure, I'll play whatever game you want. Shoot. Who sits at the pinnacle of beauty in all of existence? Well, I said, that's an easy answer. Your girlfriend. Haha, very funny, dude. I'm being serious here. Or are you just fucking with me and know where I'm going with this? Nope. I had no clue where he was going with this. I mean, how could I, unless I was in the same thread as him last night, which I definitely wasn't because I didn't know where he was going with this. Let's see. Pick pinnacle of beauty in all of creation. And if the answer can't be your old lady, I'd say it has to be all of womankind in general. Womankind, I guess, would have to be my answer. Are you sure you don't know where I'm going with this? I mean, come on, dude. You literally answered the question with where this was going to end up, and you still don't know. No, Ian, stop beating around the bush and just give me the spiel. Fine, fine. He muttered under his breath, trying to organize his thoughts before he started up. Each word Ian spoke was slow and deliberate. He always got like this when he was trying to make a point to me that I was not conscious of at the present moment. Man is attracted to that which brings about his own destruction. The highest forms of art, the worship of nature, of woman, and all of this is nothing more than the worship of our own destruction. It doesn't matter where that destruction may come from. We find the origin itself to hold intrinsic beauty, real beauty, the same beauty we find in the storm or fire, nature, animals, the sea, the deep wilderness. Do so many of these things draw us in due to their beauty alone? Is it the beauty we are drawn into or the inevitable destruction in pursuit of that beauty? Is that really the meaning of life? Seeking destruction through the pursuit of beauty, being attracted to that which destroys us, but why? And you hit the nail on the head when you said women sat at the hierarchy of all things beautiful. I agree with you on that as well. But what does that mean for man himself? What will be the arbiter of our destruction then? I don't know, but if I had to speculate, I would say it's going to be cunt. The author Neil Gaiman said, evil carries the seed of its own destruction. But I tend to agree more with what Marvin Gaye said. Love carries the seed of its own destruction. Actually, you know what? That reminds me of this cringy wordplay teenage girls used to post on MySpace. Love is just evil spelled backwards. Huh. There you go. The quotes are the same after all. After all, here, I have one more quote for you before I'm done. Love. I recognize the emotion for what it is, an irrational, self-destructive impulse which is disguised as joy. That was Tesla. Women, her divine beauty and our insatiable lust for it through love will eventually lead to our destruction. It did in the garden, and it will outside of the garden. So, I asked Ian, my question is this. Is it women that lead to our destruction themselves, or the desire of womanly beauty that will lead to our destruction? Yes, Ian said, both of these in combination. I would say the two aren't mutually exclusive. Let's move the ball into your court for a minute. In literature, there are 7 kinds of conflicts. Person versus technology, person versus the unknown, person versus society, nature, fate or God, the self, and another person. But I would add one more to that, man versus love, or man versus the destructive nature of beauty itself. This category should be its own. It doesn't quite fall into place among the last 2 types of conflict, person or self, and person versus person, because it's a battle of both of these things, as well as beauty itself, biology, society, all of these drives. Women are a much more powerful enemy than that man has faced before this, because she is the perennial form of beauty itself, and the only destruction so far that has come from this is through our attempt to obtain such beauty. Now we are transitioning to a phase of humanity in which man might be forced to destroy that which he seeks his own destruction from. Man versus the beauty that brings about his own destruction. Man versus the feminine nature. Seems like a new phenomenon to me, like a response to all this rampant sexual liberation. I know this isn't exactly what kind of conversation you wanted to have here, but isn't this kind of literature more like a return to the traditional roles of man and women, or a byproduct of this this destruction, and hopefully one that only exists, temporarily before people get their collective shit back together? Well, I figured you would say that. That's why I was so excited to talk to you about this. Maybe all this stuff is just the subconscious realization of our own desire for our own destruction. I mean, hell, look at what's left of the country after it. Yeah, man, but I love modern women. It's liberation, lack of inhibitions, and especially all that unrestrained sex drive. I wonder how many of them are really just succubi inhabiting a pretty face meat suit. I feel like I'm living in Miller's Paris or Rawls Alexandria. Yeah, well, not all of us have it so easy now. Some of us have lost the genetic lottery. Some of us didn't. That's life, I guess. Fuck off, dude. You have a living girlfriend. Don't start spouting off about the genetic lottery or any of that MGTOW shit. It's cringe. I'm all with you on what you said first, but now you're starting to sound like the supreme gentleman right now, and I gotta say, it's a bad look. I laughed through my shit-eating grin when I said that last bit. Fuck off, dude. No, fuck you, dude. I hate when you compare me to that psycho. Well, if you didn't sound so much like him, I wouldn't call you out for it. You need friends like me to keep you from slipping. Ian was laughing with me now. That's rich coming from you. All right, Pat, I gotta go. Think about what I said and let me know later today. See Ian. And off he went down the docks, weaving in and out of the lanes, dodging oncoming motors and the ones coming out of their respective trailers.
I love that. I love the way that piece is framed, because it opens with all the B shit and all the old internet shit, right? And then it closes in the same way. It closes as like 2 friends bullshitting. It closes with the like Elliot Rodger reference and stuff like that. And yet in the middle, there's like this like almost like Socratean kind of dialogue, philosophical dialogue, right? And somehow that feels like true to like message boards and to the internet and to being a certain kind of like 20-something-year-old guy at a certain moment in history, and having your life be defined by like, by like 4chan shit and stuff. I don't know. It's just great.
Yeah. And I felt like a character like that would be like a good autodidact to put in my story, just to have rant off about whatever I want, because I could just be like, oh, I found it on a thread on B, and there you go. You have the perfect intro to it.
Right, yeah.
I did like a guy very similar to that, so it's good to have real experiences to just draw from in your art.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, that was fantastic. So, before I do a little bit of filibustering here, I want to give. I see a couple of people came in. I'm not sure if anyone else would like to read. Oh, Bibles was here and Bibles is gone. um, okay, I guess they're on everything. Okay, all right. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna read some truly unequivocal trash here for a little bit, maybe just a couple of minutes. I'll put the link in here. Um, so actually, I'll just read the little introduction here. I'm not going to read all of this. I think there's like 40 pages or something here of just random incoherent trash. But okay, so just going to read the little introductory paragraph. As a way of closing out our November, already I'm tongue-tied. As a way of closing out our November abandoned work theme and of commemorating the end of another largely wasted decade of my life, I've combed through more than 10 years of Google Docs and dredged the fertilizer lagoon of my computer's documents folder to find as many of my aborted creative projects as possible. Below you'll find an archive of unfinished stories, essays, tabletop games, characters and custom content for role-playing games, and an assortment of random brainstorming documents. All but a few of these pieces are short. Some are very, very short. These are the works of an artistic dilettante, someone too lazy to ever take his writing as seriously as he should have or hoped to. I've organized the items chronologically, and I've tried to include the year in which they were written and, whenever possible, the month. Though sometimes the best I could do was a rough estimate. I've included a short description with each piece to provide a tiny bit of additional context. Still, good luck figuring out what the hell I was trying to do with most of them. None of the pieces have been edited, so expect plentiful typos and lots of poor grammatical and artistic choices. Much of the writing below is offensive and incoherent, even by my lax standards. It's bad, is what I'm trying to communicate. Enjoy. So yeah, this is a little active self-flagellation here to start the year, I guess. So this first thing, it's called Consumptive Adept, and it's an unfinished Dungeons and Dragons custom class that I made. It's not clear what I did it, but it looks like it was probably around 2008. And then I'm not going to read the little, a content block here at the top that I failed to fill in. I'm going to skip over like the class level shit and go right to the core of the class. See, class skills. The following are considered to be class skills of the Consumptive Adept: alchemy, concentration, craft, heal, hide, intimidate, listen, profession, search, spot, survival, use rope. Skill points at first level, 4 plus int modifier times 4. Skill points at each additional level, 4 plus int modifier. Class features. Tuberculosis. In order to qualify for this class, the character must be suffering from an advanced case of tuberculosis. Although this class grants the victim a certain level of control over the more severe physical effects of the illness, the character continues to suffer from its lesser positive symptoms: coughing, often including bloody mucus, chills, fever, fatigue, pain while breathing, etc. Also, the Consumptive Adept remains contagious until he gains the ability to suppress this contagion at later levels. If the Consumptive Adept's tuberculosis is cured by magical or non-magical means, he or she loses all of his or her class abilities. Next ability, Fistic Focus. Fistus Focus. I don't even know. Starting at first level, the Consumptive Adept gains an ability to manipulate the wasting effects of his disease in order to generate temporary resilience at the cost of physical deterioration. As a standard action, a Consumptive Adept may temporarily trade 1 point of Constitution for an extra hit die worth of temporary hit points. The Consumptive Adept may also use this ability any number of times until Constitution is reduced to 0. But each use requires a standard action. Temporary hit points gained in this way last 1 hour. These hit points are lost or spent prior to permanent hit points. The Consumptive Adept regains Constitution spent in this way at a rate of 1 point per full hour of sleep. Dostoevskian Awareness. Starting at first level and continuing every fourth level thereafter, the consumptive adept may select one wisdom-based skill. This is what I was doing in 2008. I was I was making custom Dungeons and Dragons character classes about people who turn their tuberculosis into magic. Okay. The consumptive adept may pay a number of hit points equal to or less than his class level in order to gain a bonus on a check on that skill equal to the number of hit points expended. I'm not even sure how the mechanics to this game work anymore. Immune efficiency. Starting at second level, the consumptive adept gains a level of finesse over his tubercular constitution that grants him the ability to strengthen his defense against poison and disease at the cost of physical deterioration. The character may spend a number of hit points equal to or less than his class level and apply a bonus to a fortitude save equal to the number of hit points expended. Then I never named this ability. Starting at second level and continuing every fourth level thereafter, the consumptive adept may select one dexterity-based skill. The consumptive adept may pay a number of hit points equal to or less than his class level in order to gain a bonus on a check on that skill equal to the number of hit points expended. Oh my God, this goes on forever. Let's see. Agonized distraction, starting at third level. The consumptive adept gains a level of finesse over his illness that grants him the ability to initiate periods of fatigue or pain in order to breach the effects of charms and other psychological conditions. So basically, a lot of these are just giving, he can like spend hit points to gain bonuses to rolls. I'm just going to skip over a bunch of these. Yep, same thing with Dickensian Charm. He's burning hit points to gain bonuses to his charisma checks. Salvation through suffering. Starting at fourth level, the consumptive adept gains a level of finesse over his illness that grants him the ability to inflict sudden bursts of internal pain upon himself, generating increased adrenaline levels that can be used to evade physical dangers. The character may spend a number of hit points equal to or less than his class level and apply a bonus to a reflex save. So that's reflex saves. Psychic quarantine. Psychic quarantine. Yikes. This perhaps not aged well. Let's say, okay. Oh, he can turn the contagious nature of his disease on and off. So I guess he could spit blood on a monster or something and give them tuberculosis. That's practical. Vampiric facade. He can manipulate the positive symptoms of his disease and enhancing his appearance of sickliness and contagion in order to disrupt the attention of an opponent. Okay. The character may spend a number of hit points equal to or less than his class level and apply a circumstance bonus to armor class. Okay. And so on and so forth. I'm not going to read this entire class. Looks like he can pay hit points to add to his attack roll. So basically the entire class, he's just spending his hit points to gain bonuses to rolls. That seems to be the entire thing. I'm done with this. This is next, Imperial Ashes. I'm going to stop soon. Don't worry, guys. Beginning of an unfinished fantasy novel. As date unclear, possibly 2010. Imperial Ashes 1. Oh, wait. Don't stop. Rudy. Okay. The house had been filthy for as long as I didn't name the character, could remember. The purple-red mold growing below the kitchen stove might as well have been the colony of some distant imperial dynasty. Its borders were continually expanding as it advanced across the floor, driving native hair and dander into refuge between the floorboards. The milk pans had become ponds, with a layer of algae replacing the skin on the settling cream. Frogs plopped from pan to pan at night, disturbing Nane's sleep as they loudly propositioned mates. Mice had nested in the straw and rags insulating the walls. They were ambitious builders, gathering and piling and clumping the insulation, securing their comfort at the expense of drafts and cold spots for the house's other residents. After their walled city became overcrowded, and materials became scarce. They turned on their neighbors. Name never saw their battles, but he heard them. He heard the scurrying and the screeching of combat and the pained whines of the retreating wounded. Once while he, and then I didn't write anything after that, ends mid-sentence. Next, the seed seller. Unfinished prologue to an aborted fantasy novel. Date unclear, possibly 2010 or 2011. The men knew the seed seller was inhuman because his souls were always clean, because his shoes were always clean. It was the worst drought in generations. The dust settled everywhere. It settled on the drying tongues of every man as he worked in the fields. It settled on every sprout and the yellowing, it settled on every sprout yellowing in every row. It settled in the lungs of every child. But it never settled on the seed seller's shoes. They were always polished. Every skin cell in the leather was reflective. When the men would not look him in the eye, when they would stand with their hands wrapped tight around their stomachs and mumbled to him with their eyes on the ground, they would go home and tell their wives that they were staring at his shoes. They couldn't look the man in the face. They couldn't barter with him like any other traveling bum. His shoes were just too goddamn distracting. And besides, there was no bargain to be made. They couldn't afford to dicker. Most of the sprouts had already died in the ground, and within days, all the others would follow. If they didn't get new seeds planted right away, there would be no crops before the frost. So they paid the seed seller what he asked. It wasn't so steep anyway. It could have been worse. They'd heard of men paying higher prices for rotten corn cobs and bags of beans that were equal parts mold and spider eggs. In an emergency, you paid what you had to pay and your family ate. They didn't buy the rest of his promises. They didn't believe that the seeds would flourish in dry ground or that they could thrive on dew and the sweat of the men that planted them. The seed seller was a braggart, like any other man who lives off the taste of his own words. He was strengthened by their desperation. The more hopeless they had seemed, the more he would have lied and the bigger the lies would have been. So they brought the seeds with no expectations and waited for rain. They waited for fog or mist. They waited for a cloudy morning or a humid evening, any hint of moisture. Even the heavy, suffocating summer air that murders sleep would have been celebrated. But there was no rain, no fog or mist, no morning clouds or sticky, sleepless nights. There were just empty, sunny days of planting and waiting, days spent burying seeds alive and waiting for them to die in the ground. But they didn't die. The man realized, well, don't know what they realized because I stopped fucking writing. Okay, let's see. All right, I'm just going to read one or two more, okay, and then I'll be done here. Also, if anyone would like to read after me, just put it in the chat. Okay, untitled role-playing game. I don't even know what the fuck this is. Playtesting notes for an unfinished RPG. Okay, date unclear, possibly October of 2011. Note to players, these are rough directions designed to make it easier to playtest this game. Excuse me. Expect basic rules below, not flavor. I'll explain flavor, theme, etc. orally. Well, that if I still remembered the game, maybe I would. Normally you wouldn't even get this much, but I'm honestly afraid that I'll forget the rules specifics mid-game. I am already violating my personal rules about mechanical complexity. Not a good sign. No, indeed. Okay, character creation. I honestly don't even fucking remember this game. I have no idea where this is going. Each player should create an epic character and a peasant character. Oh, it's this game. Epic characters are used during the main game, while peasant characters are used during the aftermath scenes. In order to make an epic character, first come up with a general concept based on the chosen setting and what you think would be hot shit. So, like if this was a medieval Japanese setting, Tom might play a samurai who wields a double-bladed katana in each hand. Rudy might play the rapist of Nanking. Yes, all of it. Brandon might not play at all. The point is that the characters should feel epic, like Beowulf. Once you have a concept, you should come up with 3 abilities for the character that match the concept. A cool ability, 1d6, a damn cool ability, 2d6, and a fuck it, I'm done ability, 3d6. Try to keep the abilities broad enough to be useful in multiple situations without becoming so broad that they cease to sound cool. The d6 number indicates the minimum number of dice you must roll to use the ability, and the maximum number of dice you can draw from the communal pool when using that ability. See turn order below, okay? In order to make a peasant character, first come up with a basic sense of who your peasant is within his community. Is he the blacksmith, the town chaplain, a homeless drunk who drops his shorts for quarters? The question isn't so much who he is as what role he plays, what his primary connection to the others he meets is. Next, list 3 basic things your character cares strongly about. Examples: his family, his faith in God, his job, his loyalty to his country, etc. These items will vary greatly from character to character, but they must be something the character can lose. Turn order. Each player rolls. Player with the highest result frames the scene. Play begins with the player to their left and continues clockwise. During each turn, the active player decides which of their 3 abilities they will use to attack. They may draw up to that many dice from the communal pool, and then add any number of their personal dice to the attack. So I guess they've got personal dice too. Okay. The defending player decides which ability he will use to counter and draws up that many dice from the communal pool and uses any number of dice from his personal pool to counter the attack. The attacking player describes his attack in character, and the defending player describes how his character plans to counter the attack. Once the attacking and defending player have chosen their dice and described their attack in character, any of the other players may join the conflict. However, they must side with either the attacking or defending player, and they can only add dice from their personal pool to the conflict. Once they've declared which player they plan to assist, they should describe their in-character actions. Any player involved in the conflict uses, there's a typo, one of their abilities in a way that stretches plausibility or is just fucking ridiculous. The other players can vote to give that player a reality penalty of between 1 and 3d6. These penalties aren't rolled right away. See step 10. 6, everyone involved in their conflict rolls their dice. The attacking player and his allies add their results together, and the defending player and his allies add their results together. The player or group with the largest total wins. The losing player group forfeits all of the dice they used in the conflict to the winning player group. If the winning player had no allies, then they get all of the dice used by their opponents. If the allies were involved, each winning player, beginning with the attacking or defending player and proceeding through each ally based on the number of dice they used, takes turns collecting 1 die from the pool of dice used by the losers until all dice are taken. The winning player narrates the in-character results of the conflict. Repeat step 2 through 6 until each player has had a turn. 9, each player may choose any number of dice from their personal pool and return them to the communal pool. Each player takes a turn rolling the dice in their personal pool once and adding up the results. The player then rolls any reality penalties that they've earned during the scene and adds the total to their result. Then the player finds their result on the aftermath chart scene and removes the number of dice in their personal pool from the game indicated by the chart. 11, each player takes a turn playing out an aftermath scene based on the result they rolled on the aftermath chart. These scenes should be entirely in character. I feel like some group dynamic shit led me to put that in italics. Players play their peasant characters during the aftermath scenes. Any other player may insert themselves into another player's aftermath scene as an NPC, so long as they behave in a way that is in keeping with the result rolled on the aftermath chart. I.e., don't take a personal tragedy, turn a personal tragedy into a global catastrophe. 12, return to step one. Holy shit, I've been reading for 20 minutes. Oh, I'm sorry, guys. I'll finish it. I'll stop after this one. Return to step 1. Where would I? 12. Return to step 1 and repeat all the steps until all the dice in play are in the personal pool of a single player. That player then gets an opportunity to narrate the terms and results of his victory. Follow this with an aftermath scene, including all of the peasant characters interacting with each other that concludes their story and shows just how shitty life is under the victorious characters' rule. Yeah, I basically stopped pretending that I was writing for a general audience there. These fucking rules will be rewritten anyway. Yeah, right, buddy. Good luck. Okay, aftermath scene chart. So if the result is 1 to 5, it's a personal tragedy, example, a death in the family. And you lose 0 dice. If the result is 6 to 11, it's a local disaster 1, local disaster 1. Example, the town's well is poisoned, you lose 1 dice. If it's a 12 to 17, it's local disaster 2. Example, fire destroys a small community, 2 dice lost. If the result is 18 to 23, regional disaster 1. Example, a monsoon causes widespread flooding, you lose 3 dice. Result is 24 to 29 rather. It's a regional disaster 2. Example, the Exxon Valdez oil spill. Dice loss 4. Result 30 to 35. Provincial disaster 1. Example, a powerful earthquake hits a large city. You lose 5 dice. Result is 36 to 41. It's a provincial disaster 2. Example, Hurricane Katrina. That really dates this piece. And you lose 6 dice. Result 42 to 47, national disaster 1. Example, the 2011 tsunami in Japan. Wow, ripped from the headlines. 7 dice lost. If your result is 48 to 53, national disaster 2. Example, the bubonic plague outbreak. Wow, 8 dice lost. I wonder how many dice would be lost for the coronavirus. That feels like national disaster 2 level shit. If the result is 54 to 59, global cataclysm 1. Example, a comet collides with Earth, causing a mass extinction. You lose 9 dice. If the result is 60 plus, global cataclysm 2. Example, nuclear winter, and you lose 10 fucking dice. Okay, that's it. I'm sorry, guys. Oh shit, somebody's been sitting. Oh, someone was sitting in the waiting room too, and I didn't let them in. Fuck. Okay, and they left. All right, I'm done, guys. I think we're done for the night. Rudy? Did anyone say they wanted to read or anything while I was filibustering?
All right. I could read something, but
Yeah, sure. Do it. Fuck it.
I don't want you to have to be the most embarrassing piece of the night here. So I'll read one of mine that's even more embarrassing than that.
Gotcha.
This is an excerpt from a novel that I wrote.
Okay. Here we go. Do you have a link?
I do not.
Okay.
Okay. Patriarchy. In the year ? The venerable ninja sorcerer Latrine Romance parted the fabric of observable reality and created the framework of unspoken bylaws, parasocial regulations, social positioning strategies, and performative social contract paradigms that is now known as the patriarchy. This act, so far as it is significant to man, is known as the apathy of the many witnesses, or the bystander's curse. Peering from a perch on high was Mother Earth, the oldest old Earth, and she did nothing to stop the ninja lord. Considering I am an old woman lying in fallow, and neither is my responsibility nor is it my benefit to act, so I will not act. And so, beasts of long tooth and many spindly legs, and those whose glands seethe with venom did not act to lay sufficient ambush for Latrine Romance, or acted of their own accord with no support from their mother. Subsequently, those who were brave, brash, or unilateral in their action, saying, "We are responsible for this injustice, if we should be bystanders," were quickly laid to eternal rest by spell and fist and shuriken, for that is the way of the ninja clans. And said the fell ninja, "Motherfucker, it's my way to slay big animals and flash big bands from my billfold. From my fingers come thunder boomers, and damn a black nigga to tell anything different. Elements done bent to my commands, rocks done crumbled like crackling bread, beasts done splintered into chunks. Now watch me get my nut." So it was the fate of every beast crawling on the earth to see the goals of the ninja advance with no reprisals. They trusted in Mother or some other benevolent actor to do something, call someone. So too did the neighbors in the dusty cosmos, whose names are irrelevant, look on in horror, or continue to read their evening news or turn up their radios with hearty shrugs. While all this happened, the superintendent of the whole housing complex was silent on the matter and may have been asleep at the time. Man was a somewhat different animal. It was not raw force, but rather an extinguishing of spirit that ruined any chance that humankind would do something to stop the patriarchy's march of ruin. Latrine romance came to the dwellings of man, which at this juncture were very primitive and cold and filled with little nourishment. But brightly did the fire of domestic unrest burn inside of them, which heated up tempers without also heating up feet, hands, and other frostbitten extremities. And as he entered, tongues that had previously only made gutturals made poetry to speak their concerns freely, for his sorceress Chi had greased their rusty gears. It's just that there really isn't no meat in our bellies, cried some of the males. And here we leave our females in breeding labor while we go to hunt. The hunt is so vicious, and some of us don't come back. This is some real shit, said a female, that we're left here with our thoughts due to our need to basically fuck and dote on the children. And a lot of the time we die pushing out the little bastards. The Ninja Lord asked, who's to blame for this? Well, said man as one, I guess you could point to the maker. This is just a cruel problem we have here with no solution. No, the Ninja Lord said with a wave of his hand. If you'll let me explain something about females, brothers, I'll give you a lot of knowledge. The males, whom he addressed directly, sat in absolute silence. You can blame it mostly on bitches, and he made a sign with his 2 fingers, which made the males instantly understand. They sitting here fucking other niggas while you out busting ass with choppers. You've got to be hard as fuck all the time because that's what men do. And if she fucks around behind your back, best believe she getting smacked. And here was born the concept of masculinity. The Ninja Lord made a lewd gesture and refocused his gaze. One of the females stood up and moved towards the end of the domicile where there was fetid ground for defecation. As she squatted, he visited upon her a savage beating. Bitch, you is knocked down and now you is shitty, and that'll be the end of it if you know what's good for you. The female lashed out, such is instinct. Here is you, a stupid-ass bitch, when I get my Jordan scuffed the fuck up. And at this juncture came a powerful blast of wind, for such was the force of the ninja technique that laid this female low and put her in the care of eternity. What? Time has shown itself to be non-linear and unhindered by normal Euclidean gatekeeping in the presence of the masters of the quantum. Among such masters, latrine romance was supreme. Picture you then an instance within time spectrum, or several instances if serves understanding, where all the females in the domicile were punished in such a way simultaneously and made to understand that their punishment was due to their lack of good judgment. And repeated was this instance until understanding became submission. In all these instances, tilted was the firmament of reality in such a way so that the female was savaging her own self, and weaved was the fabric of time so that death was not a final end, but merely the completion of a single iteration of an endless loop. Truly, this is what happened. O Lord of the quantum, master of causality and everything that comes with it, release, reprieve, mercy. This was the cry of the females tumbling in the cycle of end and beginning. And though the different dimensions of the universe, latrine romance heard this cry, repeated back at the men with perfect accuracy. You hear that, brothers? You hear the weakness of these slits? The men nodded. Some stood up with clenched fists. Others remained seated in silence, haunted by the sounds they had heard. These, our sisters, are truly strange and mystical creatures. And here was born the concept of femininity. In the year question mark, the fellest of ninjas, latrine romance, sat perched on a high mountain where he was deep in thought and reflection. The people he had taught continued their evolutionary waltz, though there was much trepidation as they moved round one another, the men afraid of crushing the toes of the women and the women afraid of doing the wrong two-step. The quantum master, who had considered the matter for a while, thought to himself, waltzing be some crack-ass shit. I want to see these motherfuckers do the whip. And as the sparks of ideation flew from his mind, they became forged into something ephemeral, not of physical form, but dwelling with the weight of the minds in the minds of the people. Gender was born, and it became known in the club, where people gathered in mass. Already were the tribes of man dividing their labor and their love, with certain tendencies skewed by their physicality, for these were primitive creatures who placed the needs of procreation above all, save for the need to keep bellies full and laden with food. Truly it was constant, delicate dance between men and women. Who should do this? How should I speak to this or that one? To what degree do I judge this one's purely physical capabilities, knowing nothing of them? In this dance of priorities, there were many wallflowers whose shyness kept them motionless on the sidelines, or whose too cool for school attitude ensured they did not seek the center stage. Eventually, the club, with a capital C, became extremely packed, and for lack of space, there was moaning and gagging and complaining. Those who lined the outer walls were forced into awkwardly cavorting by friends who saw them and pitied their perceived social ailment. Loosen the fuck up and come shake your parts, was the cry among the leaders of man who imposed their will on others. They had taken the dance to heart and would not hear requests to change the tune. To the sinners they said, if you do not want to get loose, why in the fuck did you come to the club? Leave then, and don't come back. But it was cold outside, and there was much in the club that the outside lacked, like food, a roof, and a toilet seat on which to do cocaine. So the dissenters were quiet, and they continued to grind, even if it was uncomfortable and embarrassing. Men and women now whipped and nay-nayed into the eons, and the quantum master was pretty happy. And new moves were added, which man's overseers demonstrated. They were imitated by the masses, in all cases, however poorly. The nuances of the dance became confusing, and the dance became a caricature of itself. You best keep grinding, was the cry of the leaders of man, who had now added bling and fake Gucci to their regalia, and they were the first patriarchs and kyriarchs, holding dominion over every swaying hip, spanked booty, and locked pop. Still, men and women stood shoulder to shoulder with different but equitable styles of controlling the pace of the dance. At this juncture, Latrine Romance took some of the leaders aside, and he had sharp words to chide them with. Y'all niggers have to regulate your bitches. Shit is ridiculous. And regulations were enacted, with many a blackened eye and bruised knuckle. So it was that men became the prime movers of the dance, demonstrating the steps and maneuvers to their sisters. To the ninja lord, who among all things was concerned with aesthetics, this was much better. I'd rather see a nigger out there working at first, teasing these hoes with his moves and rhythm and shit, and once he's stunned, she can come grind here later while he watch. Feel me? Here, truly, was the real start of the patriarchy's great influence over man, because those jaunty moves looked damn cool, and the club was bouncing and warm and had a good vibe. In the year question mark, the High Lord of the Quantum traveled deep into the valleys of Mother's bosom, where creatures of all kinds dwelled. It was here that he found some of the cloistered backwater cousins of man, who had not yet been educated as to the proper ways of expressing male and female dimorphisms. He became livid. The area where he emerged was home to a clutch of these hardy men and their equally hardy womenfolk, for here they had brought down a beast of immense size. In an instant, Latrine Romance had delivered a blow to a very stout chin, and in that moment, the man behind it left the ground. It was only through magnificent dexterity and the sorcery of flight that the ninja lord now chased his airborne body, for it was now an aerial game, delivering additional blows to his torso, his legs, his brain. Guard yourself, you broad-nosed, pig-looking ass nigga. If I was an ugly-ass, looking-ass nigga like you, nigga wouldn't get no booty, not ever. Ha! And came the response. Plus, some additional noises that sounded like innards shifting places, bones creaking in protest, and a pitiable gurgling. When the corpse landed and the dust had settled, there was a good deal of weeping among a clutch of girl things and boy creatures, whom were presumably what passed for the deceased family unit. Seeing their faces made the ninja lord wince, as they were neither demi-human or of questionable genetic stock. Inspection with a keen eye proved the former. A burial was conducted, and during this time the creatures were harassed by neither the quantum nor the fist. The grave goods consisted of an animal skin, a small rabbit carcass, and a sense of pride which, unlike the man's thick skull, had not yet been shattered. 3 nights passed while the ninja walked among them. For 3 nights he was disgusted. For this was a people not only without a club, but without bling, and with significantly less Gucci. Cocaine was a thing unperceivable to them. And the men who would become patriarchs whispered to Latrine Romance, and the Quantum Master listened. Oh Lord, hear us. We do not know these motherfucking niggas and never have known them. And so it was that the Ninja Lord took a fourth of the men aside and trained them in some lesser styles of ninja combat techniques that would linger in their genetic memory for aeons. He bid that them use those with the ass maces who were a mockery of man. We gonna thoroughly disrespect their shit. Niggas, olders, kids, they don't get it from that rat-a-tat-tat. Swerve. Where man's cousins dwelled was a place low in the earth. It was here that newly inaugurated ninjas, the first of their kind, trekked with a great army behind them. Down they went, flanked by the children who carried torches to light their way. And there was a terrible fighting. Just as promised, there was no one spared from destruction. And every pig face was twisted in terror. Every pig mouth did make frightened squeal. Pigs died by the hundreds. The butchery was industrial in scale, as though each was a GMO-fed money sponge, and the consumer wanted more of the toxic, sweet meat. So too, there was a lust of loin parts, because here were the progenitors of the ninja clans, given their first taste of war rape, and the mouthfeel was intense. And when everything was destroyed and the bodies were stacked scores high in grim display, Latrine Romance looked at it all and was happy. Fuck them non-verbalizing Comrade Napoleon looking ass niggas. All niggas is equal, but some niggas is more equal than others. Fuck them, they dead. Who now will stop the patriarchy? Asked Latrine Romance, and the wind and the tree fowls said, who? And before anyone was the wiser, the Ninja Lord disappeared into the ether. Here, friends, was the start of the world's many troubles. And that is it.
I actually really loved that. I've read the whole novel that it comes from, and I really love the fucking mix of it's basically like the fucking Bible mixed with a blaxploitation film, and I love it. I love the biblical cadence that first chapter has, and all the random blaxploitation and sexploitation shit. It's like if God wrote the filthiest pulp novel rather ever.
Yeah, it's pretty. I'm honestly pretty embarrassed by it, but
Nah, man, I love
way.
that shit. I don't know.
Anyway,
Yeah. Well, that's good. I mean, we might as well end the first reading of the year with a piece that's set during the beginning of time, right? It's some
fair enough.
That's there. All right, guys. I see the few people we've lost most of the few people. So I think I'm gonna call it a night for the reading. I will leave this the Zoom meeting open for a little bit here, but yeah, if you made it through this whole thing on YouTube,
Congratulations.
This has been Misery Loves Company. We do this every fucking week, every Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific. If you follow us at Misery Tourism on Twitter, you can see when we tweet out the link. Okay, that's it. I'm fucking done. Happy New Year's, guys. Happy New Year's. We're fucking done.